I'll use microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael, for introduction, and thank you very much, all of you, that you came. And I see that a lot of people are interested in this topic. And thank you, Asaf's family, to welcome us all here. And today's topic is not an easy one, and it's not easy because it also touches me personally, and because it's very painful to see when one brother kills another brother. And I'm not talking only about Christian brotherhood between Russian and Ukrainians, but I'm also talking about a very strong bond that unites us. And as you know, that we consider to be coming from the same root, not from the Kievan Rus. And I have a lot of Ukrainian friends. I have also Ukrainian relatives, and my grandfather was also Ukrainian. And so we share a lot of culture together, history, and also we share blood. And I think we all want the same thing. And what we want, it even called the same in our languages. So we want peace. And in Russian we say mir, for peace, and Ukrainian you say mir, for peace. And it's an interesting word because you can also, it has double meaning. At one point it is peace, and on the other hand it's also world. So imagine how should you say to say peace to the world? Miru mir, exactly. So I think we're all looking for peace. And I'm Russian, but I come from Kazakhstan. So I'm not coming from Ukraine, and I don't have so I'm not competent to talk right now about what is happening there on the ground. However, I think that what I see, that it's not only the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but it's larger. It's a conflict between Eastern world represented by Russia and then Western world represented by the United States and Europe. And so in West and the East, people live in different informational dimensions, and I would say information bubbles. And I know that a lot of people here coming not only from the East and the West, but there are people that are coming from Africa. I know that people are coming from Venezuela, from Albania, from Azerbaijan, from India. So even more of these information bubbles are presented here. So my aim today is not pursue you or like give only one opinion, but it's basically to find more information and shed more light on what is going on now with the world, and how maybe it's going to, how can we finish all of that? So I think that the first victim of this war is freedom, is our freedom. And the cause of this war was also freedom. If you go back to 2014, people in Ukraine, they wanted freedom and have a different political project, and they wanted to have this new political project being affiliated with Europe. Then people in Crimea wanted also freedom, but they wanted to be free and joined Russia and the family of Russian influence. And then you have these two regions, Donetsk and Lugansk, who also wanted freedom from the new Ukrainian government. Then you have a president of Russia that wants freedom from the NATO threats at the Russian border. Now you have in Ukraine people that wants to be free from Russian troops. So it looks like everyone wants freedom and seek freedom. Fight for freedom, and many people die for freedom, but freedom just disappearing, and it escapes from the people and from us. Why does it happen like that? And I think because now the two old fears, and I would call them two old dragons, they have arisen, and one dragon I would call that the remnant of the Soviet ideology, and in another hand there is another dragon that I would call apostasy of the West. And I know that it's a very strong word and a little bit offensive as well, but this is how I see it. And I'd like to reflect together on this just to prove a little bit of my point. And what would be for you the biggest fear of Russia? In 2 words. One word or 2 words. What do you fear?
Nuclear war.
Nuclear war.
I said that's 2 words.
That's 2 words. It's okay. Nuclear war. Anything else?
Dictatorship.
Dictatorship.
Europe invasion.
Europe invasion. How?
Leftist ideology.
Leftist ideology.
Sanctions to the West. Cyber attacks.
Cyber attacks, sanctions of the West. We have a lot.
Cold winter.
Cold winter. I think with all of these fears, that this dragon, it just rises and became bigger and bigger and stronger. But I would like to say you that in the other part, in part of Russia, from the Russian, let's say, informational dimension, bubble, people also fear, and they have also fears, and they fear the West, they fear the United States. And so one of the biggest fear, I would say, is the same war. And if you would see how the situation developed and what has been said by the president of Russia, it was he fears that the West is going too close to the Russian borders. Now it looks that there is also a fear. Is there any other fear that Russians or let's say this what is going on in our Russian information bubble? We have some people from this bubble tonight here.
Double standards.
Double standards. That's interesting.
The loss of culture.
The
loss of Mother Russia, the loss of culture.
The loss of culture.
Propaganda or not knowing what's really happening.
Mm-hmm. Propaganda and without knowing what is happening. So if you see that there is another dragon from the side of let's say of the Russian informational bubble, which is also a dragon that is arising with every fear that we have, and I would say even more, because I did not remember the fall of the Soviet Union. I was just born there, but I remember 90s and 2000s with people who had a lot of trust and faith in European idea, in the freedom, in the values, and I think because of the Iron Curtain, because there was not a lot of communications between people, have created this ideal world, which was Western world. We even had the phrase that we would say, "The West will help us. The West will help us all the time." But when the Iron Curtain have fallen in 90s, it has been created there a vacuum. It was just nothing, because one ideology which united people, the communist ideology, right, it just disappeared, and the people finished to believe in that. And so when it was this, let's say, vacuum of values, the people were reaching out to the West, and at the beginning, maybe things were going well. But why I would say apostasy of the West, because they faced with the reality, and they have seen that the capitalism can be also very dangerous. And as Michael would said today, that capitalism without values, it's as dangerous as the socialism and the communist ideology. And I think this is what people have met and have seen. And for sure, the long Cold War in the minds of the people, it's all the time helps to believe in the worst of the other. So this is why it was very easy for many Russians, think like that. So what we're witnessing right now, what I see that it's coming back to the same problem that has been 30 years ago. And so the second Iron Curtain is falling down. And our also informational bubbles, if they were mixing for 3 decades, now it's the information also started to be banned. And for example, now the Russian channels have been banned from the United States, from Europe, from Australia. In Russia, there are no Western channels at all. And sadly, last week, even independent news outlets in Russia have been suspended. And if you say something that is not according to something, let's say, wrong by the standards now of the Russian information, what is going on in Ukraine, you can face jail up to 15 years. So that's fear, that's a big fear. But the same thing, if you would say whatever Russian propaganda, for example, in Czech Republic, and I don't know what do they mean by that, you can face 3 years of prison. So I see that there are, like in the East, a lot, in the West, a little bit less, but we are losing that fundamental freedom, which is freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And I think this freedom has also limited us from critical thinking, from choosing information that we want. And I think COVID, what we lived, could learn us a little bit about that. And for example, if last year you heard a lot about the United States administration that did not handle well the COVID crisis. Now, in February 28, Biden's administration, they lift the masks of the fully vaccinated people. But if you go and see the death toll this year, these days, there are more people who are dying of COVID than it was last year. But because it's kind of an unbelievable, but because people now fear something else and they don't care about, facts, for example. I want to read one quotation from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who went through Soviet gulags. I think everyone heard about him. And at the end of his life, he said that gradually it was discovered to me that the line separating good and evil passes not through the states, not between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart, and around and through all human hearts. And that it's impossible to expel evil from the world in its entirety, but it's possible to constrict it within each person. So how can we battle these two big dragons, which is apostasy of the West and the remnants of the Soviet ideology? I think it can be battled with trust. I know that might sounds a little bit naive, but I believe that can be battled with trust. And once I learned a very beautiful story that just by chance I heard it because I was at the same meeting, and then we started to talk, and it was a story about a friendship of one American multimillionaire, Joseph Rich, and Kama's deputy. Kama's is Russian truck factory, and so between this American multimillionaire and Russian director of this KAMAZ, Pyotr Zrelov, maybe Father Gol knows them. You know the George, yeah. And so I heard this story from them, and it just struck me so much. And Joseph Rich, he has 10 children, and he had everything in terms of, they had a lot of money in the United States, but the only thing that he said he did not have, it's a security that his children will survive the nuclear war. So he says, I want them to be safe, and so he started to look for all means to ease the tensions between United States and the USSR. And so at the end he chose the methods of people-to-people diplomacy, and he traveled to Moscow, and in a Russian exhibition center in 1987 he met by accident this guy Pyotr Zrelov, and they started to talk, and Pyotr said, I'm interested to bring computers industry and computers to the USSR because it will help to our industry and also will help develop our society. And Joe, after talking with him, said, I would like that you will be my partner, with a business partner, and I will invest on you $5 million. And then Pyotr says, I'm not an entrepreneur, and I'm from the Soviet Union. We don't do business here. How I'm going to do it? And then he said, if you fail, it means that I made a mistake to choose you. Don't worry. But imagine that 3 years after, they built up a partnership company. It was the second one between the United States and the Soviet Union. And they called it, this partnership company, they called it Dialogue. And because they wanted to, not only to do business together, but they wanted to bring people from business start to talk with each other in USSR and in USA. And interesting thing was that in 1990, Bill Gates came to Moscow to open the first MS-DOS version in Moscow. And then Steve Ballmer came also to Moscow a year after to announce his partnership. So this story brought a lot of good fruits. It helped a lot of people because the company grew, and then after this company, they created even a bank, so they expanded a lot. And they also, with this cooperation, they were trying to bring values into the business. And eventually also showing that friendship and business, fair business, could be beneficial also for a dialogue and battling the wars. So I would like to come back now to the quote of Solzhenitsyn and to again think about that the line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart and through all human hearts. And I think it's true what's happening right now in Ukraine, and people are dying, and it's terrible. And again, I'm not an expert to talk about all of that, and we see all of this in the news. But I believe that even now, this dialogue is even more important than to wait until the war is going to finish, and to wait that the situation is going to improve. And so I think that that we need this dialogue, and this is why I really thankful Michael that we have this evening, that we can have and hold this dialogue. And I believe that these two dragons are going to be battled, and I know that these two big dragons, apostasy of the West and the remnants of the Soviet ideology, they have the same beginning, and the same beginning, I think, it is in the snake that we all know, that once the death of the humankind and who brought for us the evil and through Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So I'm finishing right now here, and I'm sure that there will be questions and discussions. And thank you.